Good morning. Is it afternoon already? I guess I haven't looked at my watch, right? Good day. How about that? It's a good day in Wisconsin. It's a good day in America. It's a good day to be a Republican. How about that? We should all remember the federal government did not create the states. The states created the federal government. Those were the words of President Ronald Wilson Reagan in his first inaugural address in January of 1981. And those words are just as important, if not more so, today. You see, as much as you might be upset about some of the things that are happening under this president in Washington today, we should be mindful that here in Wisconsin, real reform is happening just as it was envisioned by our founders, as President Reagan laid out. Real reform happens in the states, and it starts in the states, and it's happening because of your help right here in the great state of Wisconsin. Think about it. With the help of grassroots people like yourself here at this convention and all across the state, many times, in fact, last year at our victory centers all across Wisconsin, Tonette and I would go and see a lot of folks that I see here right now, but oftentimes we'd ask for a show of hands. Show of hands at the victory centers back before the recall election last June, and oftentimes half or more of the people there would say, I've never been involved in a campaign before, but I came out to help in this one. What that shows is the success that we had last year was grassroots support getting out a message that resonates with the people in the state of Wisconsin. Our reforms worked so well, forget about what happened nationally. Our reforms worked so well in 2012 that we elected an additional member to the state assembly to add to our majorities. We not only regained the state Senate majority by 1 vote, we actually did it by 2 votes. We elected again, I should say, our outstanding lieutenant governor. And as has been mentioned many times before, Tonette loved doing it the night of the recall election, you all helped me, through your grassroots efforts, become the first governor in American history elected twice in the same term. But I think it's important to pause for a moment, though, and think about how far we've come. You see, 4 years ago, at about this time, I pointed out in my first address at this convention as a candidate for governor in the 2010 election. It was in 2009 in La Crosse at the convention of this Republican Party of the state of Wisconsin. I pointed out at the time that 4 years ago, Democrats controlled the majority in everything in state government. The governor, the assembly, the Senate. And think about for a moment what things were like 4 years ago. 4 years ago, the unemployment rate topped 9.2% in June of that year. 9.2%. 4 years ago, Wisconsin ranked number 43 out of 50 states in terms of the best and the worst states to do business in. 4 years ago, nearly every school district in the state had to buy their health insurance from just one provider, WEA Trust. 4 years ago, most schools in our state had to make hiring decisions not based on merit, but by seniority and tenure. 4 years ago, Democrats who controlled things in our state's capital were proposing budgets and budget repair bills that raised taxes on the hardworking people of this state and our employers by $3 billion. 4 years ago, those same Democrats were pushing forward initiatives that continued to allow local governments to raise our property taxes higher and higher and higher. 4 years ago, Democrats in our state's capital put in place policies that ultimately led to a $3.6 billion budget deficit at the start of 2011. 4 years ago, I announced just days before this convention, I was running for governor because I believed in the people of Wisconsin. But I also believed that our leaders at that time were failing us in our state's capital. They were taking us backwards. And I believed in our state model that together we had a better plan to move our state forward. Now think about the contrast. Over the past 2 years, since Republicans have taken charge of state government, not just in the executive branch, but in the Assembly and the Senate, with your help, together over the past 2 years, we made a tremendous amount of positive changes and reforms for the people of our state. Today, that unemployment rate that peaked out at over 9.2% is down by more than 2 points, one of the most significant drops we've had in recent history. Today, that ranking that used to be in the bottom 10 has now gone up 23 spots, 23 spots higher than where we were 4 years ago in terms of a place to do business in. Today, our schools are now empowered to bid out their health insurance, which saves them tens of millions of dollars. In fact, I got a kick the other day out of seeing yet another story about the Appleton School District that not long after our first reforms came out and pointed out that they were able to save $3 million plus by just bidding out their health insurance. That was almost 2 years ago. They just had another story in the last couple of weeks where they're saving more money on top of it because they bid it out again. And it's not just districts like Appleton. The small town where I grew up in, Delavan, the Delavan-Darien School District, as small as it was able to bid out its health insurance and save almost $1 million over the first 2 years of their contract. There's tremendous changes out there. Those same schools that can now bid out their health insurance can make hiring and firing decisions based on merit. They can pay based on performance. That means they can put the best and the brightest in their classrooms, and they can afford to keep them there. We should proclaim that over and over again. We're the ones who care about education in this state because we care about the students in the classroom, not about the education bureaucracy. Now, because of our reforms, property taxes have gone down not once, but twice in the last 2 years. For the first time in a long time, property taxes on a median valued home in each of the last 2 years consecutively have actually gone down, not just been frozen. How about that for reform? Today in Wisconsin, instead of debating about how high our tax increases are going to be, in Wisconsin, we're actually having a discussion in our state's capital amongst those in charge as Republicans about how big the tax cut's going to be going forward. So I think going forward to 2014, the choice is pretty clear. We don't want to go back to the days of double-digit tax increases, $1 billion budget deficit, job loss. Do you want to go back? I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you. Do you want to go back? No. Well, I don't want to either. I don't want to go backwards. I don't want to go backwards to those days when things were headed in the wrong direction. With your help, we're going to build on the positive reforms of the last 2 years. We're going to continue to move Wisconsin forward. And that's not just good for those of us as Republicans. That's good as people who love this dear state that we live in. That's people who love Wisconsin, because as our reforms move forward, we not only help elect more Republicans, we help the people of the state of Wisconsin. But we need to continue down that path of reform. We need to continue to show the people of Wisconsin that the R next to our name doesn't just stand for Republican, it stands for reformer, and we're going to continue to push reforms that make our state a better state to live in, to work in, to play in, to grow up in, to someday retire in, because we love Wisconsin. We love Wisconsin. We love the people of Wisconsin. So help me as we continue down that path of reform. We need to continue to push economic reform that empowers the small businesses and employers of our state to continue to create jobs to put our people to work. We need to continue to push forward tax reform that relieves the burden of high property taxes and income taxes and sales taxes on the hardworking taxpayers of this state. We need to continue to push forward with education reform, because we must ensure that every child in the state, no matter what their background, No matter where they live, what their zip code is, what their parents do for a living, every child in this state must have access to a great education, whether they go to a traditional public school, a private school, a charter school, a virtual school, or in a homeschool environment. Every child in this state must have access to a great education. And we're going to give them the choice for their families to make the best choice for their sons and daughters. In addition to those reforms, we need to push entitlement reform. I think moving people from government dependence to true independence is so important. It's why we're pushing reforms in unemployment compensation. It's why many of you talk to me about this and affirm me on this, and I appreciate it. Why we understand that when it comes to health care and Medicaid in this state, our measures should be both to reduce the number of people who are uninsured and reduce the number of people on Medicaid dependent on the government, which is precisely why we didn't take the Medicaid expansion. But one more area you may not have heard about that is worth explaining. You see, in addition to reforming unemployment compensation and Medicaid and other areas to move people from government dependence to true independence, one other area we're focused in on is food stamps. On food stamps. A lot of people don't know this, but in Wisconsin, like most states across the country, up until last year, there was a waiver in the state, just like there were in 46 of the 56 states, a waiver that said the state did not have to require able-bodied working-age adults to be employed or on employment training to get food stamps. Now, I changed that. And when I announced that change, you should have heard what they said in Madison. They said, oh, the governor hates poor people. He's making it harder to get government assistance. I said, I love the people of my state. I love the people of Wisconsin so much, I don't want them to become permanently dependent on the government. I'm not making it harder to get government assistance. I'm making it easier to get a job. And I'll give you a good example of why that's true. You see, last year, before that waiver was kicked out of Wisconsin, there was a young woman in Milwaukee named Elizabeth. Elizabeth was a single mom who was down and out. She came in and asked for some temporary assistance from food stamps. She got the food stamps, and to her credit, she didn't have to, but she signed up for the employment training. She did so well in that employment training, they connected her to the technical college. She got trained as a certified nursing assistant. I thought this is a great story. When I introduced my budget earlier this year in the state capitol, I was so enthused about the story of Elizabeth, I wanted to invite her to sit up in the gallery so I could point to her just like the president does in his speech and say, this is what I'm talking about. But I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it. You know why? Because Elizabeth was working that day as a certified nursing assistant. And she went back to school that night to be a registered nurse because she was so good at her job. You see, when people tell me I don't care about poor people, I say I do. I care about people like Elizabeth because I understand the way to get back up on her feet is not to be permanently dependent on the government. It's to empower her with the training she needs so when a job becomes available, we got her in place to get that job and put her and her family back to work. You see, the reason that story is so important, the reason that story is so important is not just about Elizabeth, it's not just about where she's from in Milwaukee, it's not even just about Wisconsin. It's about what I heard Sean talking about before, and Ron was just talking about it on the video, Rebecca was talking about a moment ago. You see, there's a clear difference, and it's about time we stand up and not just be the party of austerity and tax relief. We're the party that has a higher moral calling that's about empowering people to control their own destiny. We're the ones that care for the everyday people of this state and of this country, and it's about time we stood up and told people that. You see, because in Wisconsin and America, In America, I don't know about you, but growing up in the small town I grew up in, I don't know any of my fellow classmates who said, Scott, nobody said to me, Scott, someday if I'm lucky, I can grow up in a country where I can become dependent on the government. When I talk to my friends who've come here from other countries, be it Mexico or Germany or Brazil or anywhere else out there, I don't know of anyone I've met who said, I came to America because my hope was someday I could become dependent on the government. No, the American dream, whether you grew up here or you came here from somewhere else, the American dream was that someday, with hard work and determination, if given an equal opportunity, you could make your own outcome in this country. You could live the American dream. We are the party that empowers and emboldens that American dream. That is innately not just Republican, that is American. And it's about time we stand up and point that out to the people of our communities and our state and our country. And if you remember nothing else, this midday from what I said, remember this, because it's a great way to pass it on to your neighbors. You see, in America, we're the only country in the world that takes a day off to celebrate the 4th of July and not the 15th of April, because in America, we value our independence from the government, not our dependence on the government. In America, we believe in the individual and not the government. You need to help us share that message. We're doing it here in Wisconsin. Our reforms are working because of your help and your support at the grassroots level to elect men and women like those of us here today in this auditorium speaking at this podium. But more importantly than just what it does for Wisconsin, is the fact is we continue to push reforms that work and empower the people of our state. In turn, we will be empowering people all across America to carry that message forward. Thank you. God bless you. Thank you for your prayers and your support. Keep it up.